I hate to be that guy, but if y'all are watching these videos and enjoy them, do me a favor and like them and subscribe. Looking at the analytics, I'm gonna pull it online up. 1.6% of y'all are subscribed, so you know, I'm not a huge channel by any means. I don't make any money yet doing this, but that's the ultimate goal. So if y'all want to support an old boy, like and subscribe. I appreciate it. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. In this video we're gonna be talking about one of these suckers is worth the almost $400 you gotta pay for them. All right, y'all, so if you see my other video, you know this is a K&N 63 series air charger, quote unquote cold air intake that I put on this truck. And obviously it replaces the factory intake system. And right off the top of my head, I think it was around $400, maybe even a little more. So these things are pretty expensive, and essentially all it is, this is polyurethane, so it's plastic. You can't get a metal one. You get these couplers, this heat shield, and then this reusable oil filter, and the positive crankcase ventilation relocation stuff. That's pretty much it for your 400 bucks. And I installed it myself. It's not too difficult. I did break a couple things like this tab, but other than that, you know, it's been in the truck for a decent amount of time and I haven't had any issues with it. So we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty. Is this worth your $400? I'm just gonna say 400 bucks from here on out, but what they claim here is that it's gonna add, they say, from 10 to 20 horsepower. And that's what K&N claims. There are videos, there are people that have done dyno runs with a cold air intake installed on the truck or vehicles, not specifically Silverado, and they do see a horsepower gain, but it is, you know, 5, maybe 10, and torque, you know, same thing, 5, maybe 10. So, all right, you gain a little bit of horsepower. Are you gonna notice 5 to 10 horsepower, especially in a truck? I'm gonna be talking specifically trucks from now on, gas powered trucks, that is. No, you're not going to notice that. So if you're doing this for the power and you're not going to tune your truck, you're not going to notice it. The main difference that I notice having this on my truck is it is louder. So this is kind of like an aftermarket exhaust for your intake. Obviously it's an aftermarket intake, but you can notice a difference in sound. So when you really get on it, I have some clips in the initial reaction video. I have a stock and an after of this exact intake. It sounds nice. So if you want to pay $400 to make your truck sound nice when you stomp on the throttle, that's up to you. And additionally, since this is less restrictive, it is technically allowing more air into the motor. So you can see a slight mile per gallon increase. Some people report, you know, a 0.5 to 1. So, you know, your engine's getting more air. It can theoretically make more power, but these things are all computer controlled. So if you're not going to tune the truck, you're not really going to see a huge difference in terms of power. So we're going to jump back inside. It is a little cold out there. So essentially what I'm getting at here is, if you think a cold air intake alone is going to make your truck like way faster, it is 100% not. You gain a little bit of power, a tiny bit. If you're going to, you know, supercharge your truck or tune it, you know, or do some other high-end performance mods, maybe. And, you know, you probably should put a new intake on if you're going to go that route. But that brings me to my final point. These are not true cold air intake systems. They're marketed as a CAI, cold air intake CAI. This isn't a true cold air intake system. It places the filter in the same exact location as the factory. A true cold air intake is going to be, you know, outside of the engine bay, where you're actually getting cold air. So back on the outside of the vehicle, typically, you know, race cars, they'll put the intake somewhere down in here. You know, in front of the wheel, or typically in front of, and it's going to be down here, you know, in front of this fender liner. And that is a true cold air intake, or, you know, something up here on the roof if they want to make a, you know, a snorkel, even though usually those snorkels are facing this way and those are for desert vehicles. But if you have a truck or pretty much any road going vehicle that's not a race car, and you drive through a puddle and you have your intake, you know, sitting right down there for cold air, yeah, you're gonna waterlog the engine, and it's just not practical for a daily vehicle if you have an actual true cold air intake system hooked up to your car. So any company that does this, you know, AFE, K&N, whatever other Scepter, whatever that one's called, marketing a cold air intake for a truck, it's kind of fake. It's not really cold air. They say, oh, there's heat shielding, all this stuff. It's not a cold air intake. It's still sitting in there in the engine bay. You know, the block is right here. The, you know, headers come off the side. It's right there. It's in the engine bay. It's going to get hot. You're still pulling technically hot air into that intake. It is free flowing. You're going to get more air into the motor, but it's not really cold air. It's not true cold air from outside of the engine bay. But I mean, in conjunction with an aftermarket exhaust and intake, it does sound nice. So in a nutshell, if you want to go spend $400 and possibly more if you don't want to install it yourself, to have your intake sound better, so it sounds nice when you stomp on the throttle, and, you know, make your truck have more free-flowing air for whatever reason, gain maybe 5 or 10 horsepower that you're not going to notice in a truck, as your call. For me, I want it to sound nice, and it improves the aesthetic under the hood. So yeah, I like it. If it was more than $400, I'm gonna go ahead and say no. I would probably value this mod at maybe $150, $200. So if you can find a cheap one, there's no difference really. If you get a name brand like K&N, or you go with a cheaper one like Scepter, they're all just gonna be straight tubes, and that tubular design is what makes your intake sound better. So it's personal preference. What you want to do, how much money you're willing to spend to make your truck sound different. Once again, you know, I have exhaust on it, I have an intake on it. I love the sound it makes when I stomp on that gas. So it was worth it for me. A little bit expensive, but if you have disposable income to make your truck sound nice, and you like truck sounding nice, and you're a car person, then I'll let you make that call. But I haven't noticed any dramatic performance increase in my vehicle. You know, I don't get on the highway and stomp it and be like, oh my God, I'm, you know, flying past sports cars. This thing's crazy. All I notice is it sounds real nice and it makes me smile. So puts a smile on your face, worth every penny. So this is a good example of the different sounds it makes. So under normal acceleration, the only sound you hear is the exhaust. That's different. But when you're getting on the highway like this and you kind of romp on it, take a listen. It sounds really, really freaking good. I like it. You know, in conjunction with an aftermarket exhaust, it sounds sweet. But once again, up to you how much money you want to spend to make your truck pretty much sound nice when you floor it. That's essentially my takeaway from the cold air intake. On a gas truck, you know, diesels, turbocharged, whole different story. Sports cars, whole different story. Gas truck, that's the deal. And one last thing, they do come, it's a reusable filter, so you're never gonna have to buy an air filter or intake air filter ever again, but you do have to maintain it. So if you're the kind of person that doesn't want to take your air filter off and clean it ever, maybe don't do it. Anyway, that's it for this video. If y'all have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. and we'll catch you in the next one.